All right, it's time to wake up, America, and think. If our government is truly founded by we the people, then why have we taken steps so far back from our freedom? During We the Grand Jury, we're putting the power back into the people's hands with our own grand juries. We will take a topic to court as opposing sides make their cases with defense, prosecution, key witnesses, and, of course, evidence. At the end of every episode, we want you to ask questions, find answers, and seek out the truth to make your own verdict. And once you've come to your decision, be sure to follow us and tag us on social media to tell us what's your verdict. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to We the Grand Jury. This is our first episode kicking it off. The whole point of this is to get you to expand your mind. Remember, just because you listen to something doesn't mean it's truth. Questioning everything is our job. You're probably wondering, we the grand jury, right? We the people. Yeah, it's a good play on words, but the whole point of this is to teach you the concept of constitutional grand juries. These are things that have been long forgotten, and I think there's a lot of things that we have forgotten in the process. One of the biggest things is we've forgotten how to communicate. We've forgotten how to debate. We've forgotten to have a good conversation. You know, I believe they say, don't talk about politics, don't talk about religion at dinner. And for what? So we can fall asleep and not have good conversation to get deeper with this. Look how divided we are as a country, right? White versus black, left versus right, flat earth versus round, men versus women, this whole thing. And at the end of the day, we're so much closer to being united in thought than anybody really wants to believe. But if we were to hit that mark and make movements towards not being so disconnected, how would we do that? Well, I think it's a lack of education, right? It's not being ignorant per se, but if you have not had the form of education or the, good grief, something's dying in the background there. If you haven't had the chance or been shown the chance or potentially been given false information or been indoctrinated or conditioned, you know, maybe you're hitting that thing they call cognitive dissonance, where your belief systems are being breached and you just don't want to believe. Well, it's easy to con somebody, but it's very hard to get somebody to admit that they've been conned. And we're not trying to create echo chambers in here, but we are trying to get the truth out, truth seeking. Sometimes that truth is shit that we don't want to hear. I mean, I've ran into that constantly, you know, through these deep dives. I found my spiritual side awakening because I'm running into so much evil that it just can't be anything less than a good versus evil battle. Again, that's my opinion. So as we go into this, we're going to build something called a grand jury. Well, with this podcast, we wanted to make sure that we weren't creating echo chambers and we were giving you, the people, an honest look at it. So our structure will be built around a grand jury, a constitutional grand jury. So you will have the justice of the peace in the background. That's Mr. Frisco Chavez. This is my right-hand man, keeping everything running smooth, make sure we don't look like idiots, don't sound like idiots. Well, I don't know if he can help us on that part, but at least make us look good. He's in the back working as our justice of the peace. He'll make sure that we stay on course, don't lose focus, and are delivering you good information. We'll have a prosecution side. We will have a defense side of these topics. Remember, we're taking topics and we're going to put them on trial, right? They're going to court. That way you, who ends up being the grand jury out there, can come up with your own verdict. We will state evidence. We'll have key witnesses, which are our guests, that are going to come in based on specific subjects, topics, and get them to kind of expose some of the things and let us know what it looks like from their perspective. Now, it's going to be tough with this group of people that we've got because two of us will be on the prosecution and two of us will be on the defense, meaning doing our own research, understanding it from both sides of the gun so that we don't create echo chambers. Every one of us have our own prejudice and our own, things that we stick to, right? I'm a Raiders fan. A lot of people think that's stupid. I get it. They have been terrible for a long time. But I stick true to it. So we're going to have to break out the molds, break past some of these ideologies and these things that we've struggled with to try and ask the question so that you, the grand jury can make an honest verdict on all of this. With that being said, I want to introduce you to some of the hosts that we're going to be having every week with We the Grand Jury. And up first is Joshua James out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Joshua James is a guy I ran into, it's been over a year and a half ago. Really expanded my mind, helped me understand when I was going through a lot of this stuff during the COVID crisis, or whatever you want to call it, the scam-demic. Helping me with understanding some constitutional law and how I can fight back to keep my business open. Josh, glad to have you on board, man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Tom. That was a wonderful opening. I love being here. I love doing anything with you. How you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. We're glad to have you aboard. I know this is something new. You know, you and I have been talking about how do we get this out to the people, right? And again, it's hard to get people to just take what we're saying, and we don't want anybody to take it. We want them to use their own cognitive resources to be able to come up with their own conclusions. But how do we give them information to help move our people back towards a constitutional republic? And it's been a struggle, but I feel like this is our first big move of being able to give people real information. Josh, you've taught me so much about the Constitution. You've taught me so much about that we're not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. You've taught me about the Act of 1871. You've taught me about how the power is in the county. The sheriff, you running for sheriff, is very important to this maintaining our constitutional rights and sovereignty, right? And about bonds. So I'm going to turn it over to you, man. Let's start just with the Constitution. Like, break it down, man. What is that?
The Constitution is our founding documents that our forefathers committed treason against the crown to form for us. We left England because of regulations, licensing, permitting, just all the controls over the peasantry, over the chattel. And the whole point of our documents, of our Constitution, is to make us all kings and queens of our own castle, so that we are not peasantry, so that we are not chattel. And over time, the crown came back and infiltrated, like you said, the Act of 1871. And between the Act of 1871 that made this country a for-profit corporation, that's the United States of America Incorporated, we've had a process that's brought us up till today. And slowly, and just like Ronald Reagan said, one generation is all it takes to make people forget. And they built their big propaganda machine, and they've totally made us forget our constitutional authorities. One of the things I make sure to always let everybody know is you got to know your constitutional authorities so that you can assert your constitutional authorities. Because if you don't know your rights, you ain't got none. And there's a lot that happened, a lot of details that happened in between 1871 and today, which we can get into over time. But we operate on two constitutions in this country. Every state has two constitutions, and the federal government has two constitutions. That's the original documents, and that's the corporate constitution.
Yeah, the fraudulent one that sits in front of the original, right? And this is kind of, again, those of you out there, this is our opening preface to everything. So we're going to put a lot of good information out there, hopefully intriguing to you, but we're going to pick this stuff apart. We're not going to leave it just sitting here without there being a debate of these things. But one of the things that Josh and I, going through this process have really come to realize is what we think we live in, the country that we call the United States, is not really what we thought it was. Our federal government is, it's an incorporation. Duns and Bradstreet, look it up. I mean, all the departments of our federal government and all of our states have become incorporated. And what does incorporation mean? It's a for-profit entity, no longer a government of the people, by the people, for the people, but a for-profit entity. And you wonder how they're able to oppress you with certain things. You become an employee to them. You become property. You become chattel through capitulations. And that's a word you're going to hear come out of my mouth quite a bit. My bandmates, We actually, in our band practices, if I say the word capitulate, we have to drink. So we don't get anything done in practice because I say capitulation all the time. But capitulation means to submit into contracts with this fraudulent government. Now, I get it. For the first time hearing this, it's like, man, I don't know. So, regardless of all that, you have elected officials. We can all agree on that. Whether you think it's a democracy or a constitutional republic, there are elected officials in our state. I like to call them proxies because they don't have a whole lot of faith in them. But these people, they have rules that they have to abide by. They have an oath that they have to swear to, which is to the Constitution, right, of the state and up to the federal government and to the original Constitution. They also have to be bonded. That's an interesting concept. So as we go through this process, understanding what a grand jury is, so say they make some rules like a mask mandate. Thank you, Governor Lujan Grisham, for that one. Or they, you got Biden saying we're going to make everybody mandate vaccines for businesses. These are overreaches, but what if you don't like that? What if you're not into that? Like, how could we, the people, because it doesn't sound like we can talk about fraudulent elections, all this stuff, but it doesn't sound like our voices are being heard, right? So, Josh, what's the answer, man? If our voices aren't being heard, how are we, the people, right? We're supposed to be in control. This is supposed to be, they work for us, but how do we go about getting this ship righted? And that's probably a terrible term to use because that's the problem. We're lost at sea, right? Go ahead, Josh. What grand juries?
Definitely. Whenever I don't serve my servants. We're the masters. Well, when we start to get down the road where the tyrants are taking over, it's our constitutional duty to take back control. And our courts, you mentioned the bonds. Every elected official is supposed to have a political surety bond or an elected official bond, which honestly is about $150. And what that does is they bond their oath. And so they're personally held accountable if they decide to not uphold that oath. And we are supposed to hold them to that. We have to put claims against those bonds. But when the courts have been taken over by tyrants, which they have, in fact,
corporations,
in fact, our courts are private membership associations. And we get into that at some point. But we have rules in the Constitution that attorneys are not to be of any part of our government. And there's around 90% of our elected officials and judges are all attorneys. So it is our duty to pull together a people's grand jury, which is we form committeemen, we form justice of the peace, we form a bailiff, we appoint, but we have to have 12 Americans and 3 alternates to be this grand jury, and
of our peers,
and the grand jury goes into private sessions where they decide the treasons and the crimes that have been committed, and they put together these formal documents. They get put on the public record, and we charge these people, and we become the grand jury. We decide that what their crimes are and how to punish them, and it's a process that hadn't happened in a long time. There are grand juries. In fact, here in New Mexico, we found case law back in the 70s where the governor was investigated by the grand juries. But of course, this state didn't become a corporation, federal corporation, until 1987. 1987. They used 2 statutes to amend Article 3 in the New Mexico Constitution. And you cannot use statutes to amend our Constitution. That's invasion, i.e. treason.
Totally. But again, once the people fall asleep and allow this power structure to just continue to grow, or to get the roles mixed up, right? Giving them the idea that they're the beneficiaries and that we're the trustees responsible versus them being up there serving it. A lot of things change, and they're able to slip a lot of things past us. And you know, as you go through this, you start diving, you realize that had we just been paying attention, had we just been educating ourselves, I mean, Josh, isn't there a holiday that we're supposed to have to study the Constitution?
It's September 27th every year. And
September 27th.
every school, your job, you're supposed to take that day to learn the Constitution because we
And
have to know our constitutional duties. And
I
we've
don't
fallen asleep at the wheel.
I don't think I've ever even heard that, you know, prior. So just that in itself, right? I mean, we can talk about indoctrinations, we can talk about the school systems, we can talk about, you know, MK Ultra, we can talk about Project Paperclip. Did we win the World War II? You know, are we infiltrated by Nazis? All this stuff. But at the end of the day, regardless of what conspiracy theories there are about how we could be controlled, just not taking the original stuff that's been given to us, right? The original respect, the original responsibilities as our civic duties to this country. Remember, the Constitution, and you can back me up here, Josh, the Constitution did not give us our rights. Those are given to us by God, right? The Constitution was just one of the first public, you know, announcements or written, you know, acknowledging the fact that there's a higher power that gives us those, meaning no one can take us that away from us, because there is, I mean, there's nobody going to come out and be like, so I'm Jesus, and you're going to do that, right? You don't get those anymore. It was proof that we have these no matter what, because no one could be above the divine, right? With that being said, we've fallen asleep and have allowed them to do this, right? They get us talked into giving up our rights for privileges. I mean, I think the original 13th Amendment, this is debatable, right? You got a 13th or 14th Amendment said no one of nobility shall take office. And you got to go back and you got to, I've done some diving in this. And this is a good one that we can bring in, right? But if that really was, and there's a debate because there was some states coming into the union, and did we have 2/3 majority or whatever that nullified it or that voted for it, right? Ratified it. And then some things changed right around 1871. But originally, basically, that means no one of nobility, because we broke away from the King of England, right? So no princes, no kings, no dukes, no lords,
No esquire.
no esquires. That's a really good one, because audience, if you don't know what an esquire is, that's a lawyer. So we had an amendment in our Constitution that said no one, not even lawyers, could take office. There's a lot of damn lawyers in our system. You know what I mean? If you think about it, it's kind of scary because, and then I don't want to go too far deep here, but this is another crazy one. Josh brought this to my attention. They register to the bar, right? You always heard that with lawyers. The bar. Does anybody know what that stands for? British Accreditation Registry. These dudes don't even have allegiance to us, U.S. citizens. They have allegiance to the crown. That's why there's the FARA Act, right? Or FARA Act, the Foreign Agent Registry Act. These people have to register as foreign agents to the crown because they're not here for us, we the people. Thus, they shouldn't take office because there is a bigger story behind all this. That leads us into like the city empire and all that stuff. But before we get too deep, Josh, man, thank you again. This is why we're here. We're going to dive into this and we're going to pick it apart. It's going to be tough. You know, we're going to have to pick different sides of the gun to be on. I'm going to have to dive into certain rhetorics that I may or may not believe in, but to get to the truth, to be able to give the grand jury out here, we the people, the people's grand jury, an honest crack at this so they can make their own decisions. I think it's very necessary to unite this country under one common cause, our freedom, our liberties, right? Justice, all of these things. It's going to take us speaking truth and seeking truth. Josh, you the man, bro. I'm so glad to have you aboard. Josh will be co-hosting with me every single week. All right, so that brings me to one of our next co-hosts. Thank you, Josh. Is Jeremiah Bush coming to us from South New Mexico, out in Las Cruces, right? It's a beautiful country out there. Got the Oregon Mountains in the background, Rio Grande running through it, Mexico just over the horizon, White Sands. If you guys have ever heard of it, it's out there. Dude, Hatch green chili is out there in his backyard. Again, that's the currency, guys. We'll talk about currency and asset backed, but I really genuinely believe that in New Mexico, if shit hits the fan, we're all going to be trading green chili. That will be our currency. Jeremiah, thank you for coming aboard. Jeremiah is a gun advocate, Second Amendment, man. He trains concealed carry,
Yep.
and is very active in his community with educating people about their Second Amendment rights. Jeremiah, thanks for being on the show, brother.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Just glad to just have this opportunity to talk with you guys about current events and the things that are going on in this country right now, and bring it to the light. Like Thomas said, I'm a firearms instructor. I teach concealed carry, but also basic pistol, couple other different courses in the home and out of the home protection. I make custom holsters and stuff like that for firearms. But other than that, really the reason why I'm here is I want to talk about the Second Amendment. I want to talk about all the amendments. I want to dissect them and really try to understand them. Ask every question that I can about them, and just expand that knowledge. Because one of your favorite quotes, Tom. I'll let you say it real quick, but it just go ahead.
Yeah, hell yeah. In the Bible it says, my people perish for lack of knowledge.
Right.
And I, thank you for letting me. It is one of my favorites. That's the whole point. Is we're not trying to be right. I don't think that's necessarily where we're at, because we don't know and we're not perfect. But we are seeking truth. We're done. The veil has been pulled, lifted over our eyes. No longer sheep in this. Show them your shirt, bro. Right? Yeah. No sheep. Yeah, it's the lion, dude. Lion of Zion. Jeremiah. Right. One of the things I've always admired about you, bro, is your faith. And that brings me to this world, or this country, and this Constitution. This entirety of what our founding fathers did was built on that faith of God and of freedom of religion. The entire immigration here was based off of getting away from the persecution and being able to come here to the United States, of America, this sovereign land, and be able to worship the way you want to, and freedoms, those amendments, freedom of speech, the rights to bear arms, right? And again, like, everybody wants to say that the Constitution is out of date. Not everybody. Let me rephrase that. There's a very loud portion of people that want to talk about gun control and limiting, our guns, taking away our Second Amendments, and saying that our Constitution is outdated. Right. One of them is Klaus Schwab. Right. I like to call him Ash Schwab. But anyways, and you got these rich elite, but they want to change it. Soros wants to change our Constitution. All these rich elite people that have one narrative, right? And I would like to know a little bit more about these amendments. I'd like to know a little bit more depth in why we have them. Jeremiah, I mean, yes, do you go out to the shooting range? You teach people how to shoot. It's a weapon. You point that at anybody. It's when you point a gun at something, that's it, with intent to destroy, nothing else. Right. Otherwise, you're not pointing it at it, or you should not be pointing it. Right.
And you got to be careful with the term weapon too, because it is a firearm. Anything can be classified as a weapon.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. I think that's a type of language that's being used to make it sound worse than it is. To attack a gun, it's a weapon.
Totally.
But it's not only used to destroy. You know what I mean?
Well, it's we look at, here's a good example. You look at you look at like Detroit, you look at Baltimore, some of these heavily regulated gun areas, right? Zero
Right.
tolerance. You can't own guns. Yet they have the highest gun um, violence rates in the country. But yet
Well,
you
because,
go, go ahead.
when they pass these laws, these gun control laws, they're taking away they're taking away my guns. I'm an upstanding citizen, you know. Um, I love my country, I love my people, I love my community, and I have them to protect myself and to educate people, and so they can protect themselves and their families. But if you take away my firearms, the bad guys aren't turning in their firearms. The ones who have them illegally, that are using them in a manner
Yeah.
to kill and destroy,
Yeah.
you know, that's the people that they need to be going after instead of people like me, you know.
And again, these are those crazy, like, man, it's you people are either one or the other, right? There's not a whole lot of fence riding in this on this conversation. So another really great debate that I think that we can bring that topic into the grand jury and be able to dissect both sides of it, because I think there's some good points. I'm not going to shoot down the fact that the lack of education doesn't allow people to bring up good points about guns. And it's not really the guns, man. We have to really get down to it's about the people, right? And it's
Exactly.
even bigger for me because I'll tell a little story here. I was not anti-gun. I was that guy trying to ride the fence. My gun was my guitar, right? My music. And I felt like I could make a difference by and I still do. I don't disagree with what I'm about to say, but I just wasn't into it. Right. My dad took me hunting all the time as a kid. I believe in it for hunting and surviving. I think it's a skill set that's necessary. This was, I don't know what, Jeremiah, 6 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, Bob.
And I just wasn't into it. Everybody else, all my buddies in my band, everybody had guns, and I just didn't have them. And I didn't talk crap to anybody about it. I just said I don't need them. I don't believe in. I don't want a handgun. I also had a healthy fear or respect, one of the two. The guns scared me.
Right.
Because I knew they put people's, lives, they ended them, not guns. People with guns would end them. But after I started talking and we started going through as I get a little bit older, and rational thinking starts to come into play, I started realizing that, man, this government thing is kind of crazy. Like,
Right.
and they started, just the shit that I get into and like infringements and stuff. And I was like, man, what's to stop me from completely being a peasant or serf or any of this if I can't defend myself? Now, I'm not like trying to be Rambo and go rogue and, take
Right.
out, a rogue government by any means, but I want to be able to defend myself. And, obviously what really happened, Jeremiah, it's the key factor. I got married. I had kids. Changes my whole perspective. They're my world. And I would never allow anything to happen, to those people. And to protect them meant a lot more to me than just me being single and writing, music against the man and all this stuff. And as I get older and try to just grind and, be a, average Joe working dude, just trying to survive, it hit me hard, and then, Jeremiah and I worked together for a while, creating a concept where we were trying to educate, and Jeremiah continued it on in his own right with Civil Strategic, which is awesome, man. I'm really proud of you. But Jeremiah educated me with it, and now I'm very comfortable with it. I protect, I teach my kids, we shoot, and it's just education. My kids understand it. It's for a tyrannical government. And I had to use this recently when the state police in New Mexico came to my retail store and told me that I was non-essential, right? They're not worried about meth heads. They're worried about people wearing masks in a retail store during the day because we all died, right? There's so many people that died of whatever this was. Oh my God. That my store needed to shut down. The police said, well, you also, because I sell workwear, fire resistant clothing, steel toed boots to the oil field. And they said, because I sold women's clothing, that I needed to shut my doors. And had Jeremiah not given me the confidence and the courage and to understand my rights, I stood my ground on my front porch with my 45 on my hip and told him, I support you. Hell, I have shoes inside. You want to come try some on? But I support you. I'm not against you, but when you stand on my own my property, right? When you tell me that somehow you have rights above me or that you're going to infringe on my rights, I'll be damned if I stand back and let that happen. And I had to tell him to kick rocks. The state police, my butt was puckered so tight. you know what I mean? And I'm like, these guys trained to shoot. So if it did come down to it, I'm probably dead. But and I had to ask him, do you understand why? Because they kept looking at my gun. Jeremiah, who does Cerakote and builds Kydex holsters and stuff, Cerakoted my gun all orange and black. It's badass. It really sticks out. But I said, you keep eyeing my gun. Do you know why I'm carrying this? And they looked at me and kind of like, why? Like, oh, I guess you're going to tell me. And I'm just like, dude, it's for a tyrannical government. It's to keep your asses in check so that we, the people, can retain our constitutional sovereignty and rights. And their eyes got about that big. They're like, what the? So anyways, good story. This leads up to Jeremiah. This is why Jeremiah's here. It's going to be tough, man, all of this, because we're going to have to take different sides to these conversations. And we may think that we're right 100% of the time about some of this stuff, but we may not be right. And through this discourse, through these debates, through this conversation, through these grand juries, seeking truth is the end. But at the end of it, we're not trying to do this on our own or come up with the verdict ourselves. We are trying to lead the people to come up with their own, right?
Right.
To be free, man, to understand all of these amendments, these inalienable rights. Yeah, it's dope, man. Jeremiah, so glad you're here, dude. Super talented. I know that you've got a lot to bring. Haven't even got to crack into this dude's biblical knowledge and just steady faith that I really think drives a very awesome direction for this group and for the audience out there. I really look forward to it, man. Next up is going to be Jason Kimmons out of Artesia, New Mexico, man. This homie has been around in my life for quite a bit, dude. Love Jason Kimmons. Jason,
I'm not Jason, but
yeah, I know. Looks like
he's gonna
Frisco's
pop up sometime.
Yeah, it looks like our justice of the peace is slipping in the background. There we go. Jason Kimmons, glad to have
What's
you
up,
aboard,
Tom?
brother. Love you, dude. Out there in southeastern New Mexico, one of the hometowns, man. Living in oil field country, right? Awesome.
Yeah, you ain't
bro.
lying.
Hey, why don't you give everybody a little bit of a spiel of who you are and why you're here, man?
All right, Tim 4. What's going on, everybody? So I'm just a regular, hardworking, blue-collar guy. I come from a small conservative town. I mean, it's full of oil and gas out here. This industry is everywhere. Here's the deal, though. I am a skeptic. I mean, that's the way I take everything. I like to take things with a grain of salt sometimes, and I like to look into them for my own self. But I like to think that the United States government has the best intentions for its freaking citizens. And that's the way I've grown up. That's the way I've been taught. And that's the way I like to think. But hearing different things, just several years may not be the case. And I'm excited about this endeavor, going down the rabbit hole. This is intriguing to me. It seems so fun because I get to do it with my friends. I get to do it with people I love. So that being said, I'm excited.
So Jason, I know like average blue collar guy. Here's a good story. How Jason and I know each other. Jason's wife has done all my tattoos and shit, man. I was one of her first sleeves. I guarantee I was her first leg, first neck tattoo. But I've enjoyed the company. But Jason was a body piercer, right? Him and his wife had a tattoo parlor, and it just entrepreneur.
Man, I did it just to help her out. It was just pretty much for like a spur of the moment thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't it wasn't something I wanted to do.
But you guys are living, I guess success is weighed in so many different ways, but you guys are living the American dream. These guys inspired me to be entrepreneurs, right? They were doing it while I was still, working
Blue collar yourself.
blue collar myself, off and on from my pops and his oil service company, and working as an electrician, right? Or scraping pigeon shit on the tops of canopies, right? Because I didn't want to take a drug test. Which, by the way, if you ever want to smoke pot while you're doing a job, clean gas station canopies, because you're up above everybody. They can't smell it. Anyways, it's a perk. Just telling you.
It's a perk, baby.
I mean, you want to talk about average Joe? I remember coming off of the canopy one time, and my dad pulled up to get gas, and he's like, "Yeah, that's impressive." But inspired by Jason, I came into the shop getting tattoos, and Jason's like, "Man, I'm not really wanting to do this anymore. You should try doing this." And I'm like,
I talked you into it, bro.
body piercing. I mean, he also wanted to get that debt off of his hands and take it over, but well played.
Fair enough.
So I decided, shit, why not, man? I'm, working for peanuts, doing other things. Why not entrepreneur? So Jason helped talk me into my very first business adventure into body piercing. I went all the way out to San Francisco, California. You want to talk about blow your mind, open your eyes, learning how to pierce in San Francisco, California. Yeah. I was just I had my ears pierced. I ended up coming back with seven piercings. Anyways, interesting experience, Jason. But you guys, you kind of live in that American dream because you've tried it. You've succeeded, not succeeded. You've tried food trucks and stuff, but that's the whole point in this country. We still want to believe that, that we have the opportunity to pursue just about anything. Now, capital is a MFer, right? That's a hard one. If you don't got capital, it's very hard to do. But I mean, that rig that you guys bought to try and do, what was it? Is it Goodfellas?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Goodfella Foods, dude. I mean, you don't skimp when it comes to trying to do it. That's what I love about you. You are an entrepreneur, regardless of wins, losses. His wife has been hitting it hard, stroking it as a tattoo artist. Love the shit out of you guys. You guys have done a great job. Jason now works in the oil field at a refinery, day in and day out, grinding it. All that gas that we take for granted, all you electric car, or excuse me, you coal powered car people. Anyways, Jason, what's it like working for, say, a corporation like that? How does that? You're a third party, right? At these refineries.
Yes, I'm third party working for a refinery. Yes, sir.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good gig what I have, and it's been good to me. I mean, it's just a lot of hard work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it's like a bunch of people don't understand what truly goes into. And my job is quite a bit easier than what other people like working on oil rigs, pulling units, and just some of the operations and stuff. I mean, if there's a fire, they're running to it. They got to close valves or relief and do other things like that. I'm running away, and it's a lot of things on the underground that much of America doesn't understand or doesn't realize what it takes to get gas to the gas station.
Yeah,
get
totally.
oil on the shelf.
But nobody wants to. Nobody thinks about it not being there, right?
No,
especially we go through the supply chains. Well, so just a normal day. I mean, like, what do you consider, like, what's your American dream, man? Like, what are you after? Like,
oh man, American dream. It's just it's something you wanna be with your family and friends. You want to be able to just save a little money at the same time. I've always been told, you work hard, you're free. You get to choose your fields that you want to get into. You work hard, you pay your taxes, you pay your dues, and save your money. I mean, you drink, you get fat, you retire. I mean, that's the American dream, is to have a comfortable life.
So with that being said, that makes me, so you genuinely believe then maybe that the government is out for your best interest? And that's what I've been told my whole life. Even my parents and my grandparents. I mean, we've all believed this, and I really hope so. I would love to think that it is that way. So, and we've got plenty of weeks to go down.
Here we go. Yeah. Rabbit hole, baby.
But with all everything happening this past 2 years, this pandemic, I like to call it the scamdemic, but because there's just a lot of information we just didn't get. That's whether the virus is real is not real. There are viruses, and I could go down another rabbit hole about that.
Yeah,
But
sure.
with all of this, and what leads into these mandates, right? And these mandates have affected your business. They've affected supply chains. They've affected livelihoods. They've affected the psychological effects on like kids going to school with
Yeah.
masks. What does it look like from your perspective, at your job? Did they mandate masks?
Oh yeah, yes, for sure. For sure they mandated masks. I mean, and all you can do is just go ahead and go along with it, because if you don't, it could be
You're
your
out of
job.
you're out of a fucking job.
Potentially,
Yeah.
yeah.
What about did they mandate vaccines?
No, they did not mandate the vaccines, but it was, it's a good thing if you were to get vaccinated, and
Totally.
it's just like, yeah, they not causing people to miss as much work or whatever and this and that,
Yeah, so it's interesting, like you saw this going on, and we don't have to direct it towards anything, but like Krispy Kremes, man, they were giving you get a free donut if you go get
Right.
the vaccine.
Yeah.
It's a lot of this
There
stuff.
for a little while.
Yeah.
For a little while, the state of New Mexico was doing the same thing, right? Weren't they giving a couple $100 if you got the vaccine?
Yeah,
I believe so. If you looked into
yeah,
it.
right before all this, during COVID in 2020, the winter of 2020, and it may have been 2021, they were giving you food. Remember, they shut down the grocery stores. I should have brought this up with Jeremiah. They shut down the grocery stores, right? Some of them were shut, but they were allowing you to turn in your guns. There you are, Jeremiah. Turn in your guns.
Yeah, that sounds a little suspect to me.
For a gift card for food, leveraging and this is perfect, which is, hey, bring everybody back in, Josh. This is perfect because, like I said with Josh earlier, they get us into giving up our rights, right? Second Amendment rights for privileges. Hey, no, give us your guns, we'll take care of you. Totally. Yeah. We'll take care of you, even if you don't want what we're going to give you. We're going to give you some food, even if you don't like the food. We're going to give you shoes, even if you don't like the shoes.
You talk about the scamdemic, right? As far as guns go, mass shootings, that is what they're pushing to try to get us to give up those rights, right? One of the things, if you look at Switzerland has the lowest rate of mass shootings in the world.
Because they give people guns. They hook them up with, they issue firearms. Their citizens firearms. What a great, I mean, these are all great debates. These are all great directions that we're going to go into. So, we've done this little roundtable. Now, everybody, you get to see all these, cute faces. A lot of them are around. That's good. I'm going bald. But we are here and committed to trying to bring up these topics, right? We're not worried about the mainstream. And quite frankly, that's going to be one of the main ones, is getting disconnected from the mainstream and making sure that you're doing your own research involved. Because if you're listening to a narrative and you take that narrative as truth without accepting any other narratives or any other information, without doing any research, and then you go utter it sounds like Facebook, and you're brainwashed, or you're spouting brainwashed rhetoric or agendas. I would encourage everybody in here to make sure that you're doing that research, and we may get it wrong. That's probably guaranteed. I'm gonna pop a lot of wild shit off in here because I go deep down some rabbit holes. We talked the other night about flat Earth, and I'm not everybody's into it. I think it's funny because I love getting into questioning things again. Questioning what's the heliocentric model, man? Does anybody even understand? If you want to say that the Earth is round and that's what it is, which again, I'm not saying the Earth is flat, but wouldn't you want to know all the information? Jason, you're laughing. There's no flat Earth for you.
No, not at all. Well, but here's the thing. I'm interested in it. I want to hear I want to hear other people's side of view, their point, because I'm love to hear it. If am I gonna believe it at the end of the day? I mean, it better be some damn good information I just got handed. But hey, I will change. I will change. If you give me some good information, I will rethink. It'll be crazy, but
well, again, I don't want to lose everybody with too fringe and wild, because we can get into, is Bigfoot real? Right? Yeah, I see that in the background there, Josh. There's a ton of stuff, you know what I mean? Getting into some biblical, and we're going to attack a lot of it to give you guys really good dissections of these conversations and these topics that are outside the mainstream media. We're not afraid to talk about it. We're not afraid to say it. This is completely self-funded. There's no one taking us on or off unless Facebook just decides that they don't like our rhetoric, right? But at the end of the day, here's a few topics, and I kind of wanted to just run through these really quickly before we finish this up. So, the history of the United States, right? Declaration of Independence, right? A bunch of founding fathers committed treason to break away from what they felt was was tyranny, just overreach from a government, and it was a monarchy. Yeah, they broke away from that. But there was you got the Constitution, you got the Bill of Rights, Federalist Papers, a lot of really cool things that we've probably heard about in our classrooms and things like that. But there was also a treaty with the king. That treaty with the king created all of us as sovereigns, just like the King of England, right? And what is sovereignty? Something that we need to learn about. So there's a really good topic. Learning about what types of governments there are, right? They say democracy, Josh.
You'll never find democracy in our Constitution.
Exactly.
Democracy always leads to a tyrannical government. We are absolutely a constitutional republic, a nation of laws. We follow laws, and it's common law. It's God's law, natural law, not admiralty law, maritime law, which is what our statutes and codes are.
Yeah. So we'll go down that and defining what these governments are, right? Communism, Marxism, socialism, democratic socialism, all of and then the misconceptions of what is the far left or what is the far right. What does all that mean? Going through, control and the control mechanisms. And one of the greatest control mechanisms that's used is the media, but an even greater control mechanism is the money system, right? Understanding what that looks like, right? What is asset-backed currencies? What is cryptocurrency? What is fractional fiat monetary banking, right? What is the private Western Central Bank, right? Knowing where all this stuff comes from. What was the Federal Reserve Act, right? What happened on Jekyll Island? There's a lot of really good information we get to. Was all this, Lincoln, the Civil War, what was that about? Why was Lincoln really assassinated? Andrew Jackson plays a role in this. He was one of the only presidents to take down a central bank, and they tried to assassinate him twice. John F. Kennedy talked about splintering the CIA into 1,000 pieces. Homeboy didn't survive. Was Kennedy killed by a lone patsy? Was it the CIA? Was it the Bushes? What happened with 9/11? You're going to tell me buildings fell under their own footprint because 2 airplanes hit? You're going to tell me some dudes with turbans on their head in the middle of the mountains of Afghanistan with a laptop pulled off the greatest terrorist attack ever? It's a really good narrative because it makes a boogeyman. Saddam Hussein, done with the US dollar, wants to break away from it. All of a sudden, we're blowing his country up. Again, we go back and forth on all these angles, but how does it all add up? It's all about control. Are we paying attention? Do we understand what kind of government we have? Do we understand what rights we have? Do we understand, Josh, what is it, man? Our own status, what we really are, right? You got a perspective coming from someone like Josh who's running for office, right? trying to be involved with the constitutional sheriffs and really educate people through some grand juries, really putting his feet on the ground. You've got someone like Jason up here who is looking at it from a blue collar standpoint. I mean, this dude's out here cranking out the products that we use and is affected by every single scenario that happens whenever these fraudulent governments or valid governments, whatever you want to call it, make these political decisions that dictate whether or not our supply chains are up or down. Oil in its own right, Jason, fluctuates constantly, right? Were they hedged? Were they not hedged? You know, is that refinery in a good position because of those hedges? Do you got to tighten the belt? Everybody lives and dies by this, but you know, and it's funny because we have these narratives where people just, they want to have an opinion, right? I saw one and it was in Seattle, and they've got a floating rig right in the harbor of Seattle. And all of these people are out there protesting in their polypropylene canoes, kayaks. They're out there in the water. And I love it. I love it. I love it. Right. You're tree hugging hippie. I am too. You can ask these guys. I don't have paper. I do have toilet paper. I don't have paper towels. I don't have paper plates. I don't do any of that shit. Right. But again, I love all these hipsters that go out hiking and stuff. And I'm like, dude, all of your clothing is made from synthetic fibers. That's how you get your waterproofing and all this. I was like, your Subaru still burns gas. Hey, you guys know how to sell a Subaru? You sprinkle granola around it. I'm just kidding. That's biased. I don't mean that. It's, anyways, we're going to be getting into these topics, you know, like look at England, look at the Commonwealth. They took away the guns. Did you guys pay attention to what happened in Australia? Look at what's happening in Canada right now. Do you think that the Canadian government would have half the balls that they have? Trudeau, you know, Castro's little bastard son. That's another one. But do you think they'd have half the courage that they have? Huh?
But you said balls.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Do you think they'd have half the courage that they have if these people had guns? You think they'd be messing with these Aussies out on the driest continent on earth? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't be messing with them at all. And these Aussies wouldn't be having to go through all this. Concentration camps, guys. Right? That doesn't fit the mainstream narrative. You don't even see it in there. Again, evidence is needed. None of this is meant to be taken for truth until truth has been exposed. And one thing about truth, guys, is the truth does not fear being exposed. So follow the breadcrumbs. When people are trying to cover stuff up, they're not trying, when they're deflecting things and censoring it, that's not because they think it's lies and they're protecting you, right? Remember, this is back to Jason. I think the government generally wants the good for me. No, it's because they're trying to cover up their lies. They're trying to cover up their footsteps, because when truth is truly exposed, we are free. And if we're being censored, we're something much, much further than free. All right, guys. Well, Josh, Jason, JB, thank y'all for joining and being a part of this as we move forward. Cannot wait to get down on the next one. So as we go through this, guys, stay tuned, because we're going to be creating an after party that is our jury docket. We the Grand Jury docket on Telegram. So you can follow us, We the Grand Jury docket, on Telegram following this. This is where we'll dive into some rabbit holes deeper, but where you, the audience, gets to interact with us about your verdict, about the information. We'll also be on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, sharing quotes, spreading out new information that we have, what the next topics are for the next coming week. At the end of the day, you have the rights. You have the responsibility to be sovereign, to be an American national. It takes great responsibility, and it's not something you can let go of. Remember, only one generation for this freedom to slip. At the end of the day, it's up to you and I and this group here to come up with the final verdict. We, the Grand Jury. Guys, until next time, court is adjourned.